The BMW i3 is a carbon fiber science experiment with coach doors and bicycle tires. BMW went full mad scientist with this car, a cult following emerged, yet the market collectively went flaccid. Too weird, too early, too obscure, tragic. Before we start today's video, my name is Andrew Lambrecht. I'm a project engineer here at Ever, and I'm also a contributor at Inside EVs and Business Insider covering electric cars. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button to see weekly EV reviews and comparisons. Now, a brief history of the BMW i3. The BMW i3 arrived in the United States in late 2013 as the German automaker's second EV. And I know what you're thinking. The BMW i3 is the first EV BMW ever built. Well, you're actually somewhat correct. The i3 is BMW's first mass production EV, but it followed behind the Active E, a fully electric version of the BMW 1 Series Coupe that launched in 2012. BMW leased around 700 of them in the United States, primarily in EV hotspots like San Francisco and New York. Active E leases were given early access to purchase the BMW i3, and those who took advantage were able to secure the rare Electronaut edition, which came with extra options and special Electronaut decals. At launch, the i3 was a standout vehicle primarily because of its design. It used a carbon fiber reinforced plastic passenger cell, making it the only four-door production vehicle with a carbon fiber structural shell. Many of its components were designed from the ground up specifically for the i3, ranging from the roof, windows, door panels, dashboard, and more. In an era of compliance EVs built on internal combustion engine platforms, the i3 was a completely fresh take on what electrification could be. It started at $42,300 in 2014, or $34,800 when you factor in the original Bush-era $7,500 EV tax credit. The original BMW i3 in pure electric form weighed in at just 2,635 pounds, making it lighter than any other modern BMW on the road. But being light doesn't mean it's underpowered. The i3's rear-mounted electric motor delivers 170 horsepower. This is actually a better power-to-weight ratio than a Cadillac Lyriq. The first-gen i3 featured a small 22 kilowatt-hour battery pack rated for 81 miles of EPA range. Buyers who wanted more flexibility could opt for the range extender model, which added a 0.65-liter two-cylinder motorcycle engine acting as a series hybrid generator. The added weight reduced its EV range to 72 miles, but provided it roughly 80 miles of additional gasoline range. For comparison, the pure battery electric version could go 81 miles. The i3 saw several updates throughout its lifetime. In 2017, BMW increased its battery capacity to 33 kilowatt hours, raising its EPA range to 114 miles. In 2018, it received a minor facelift in a new sport variant, increasing power to 181 horses, adding fender flares, wider tires, and sportier 20-inch wheels. For reference, the standard i3 uses 155 width front tires and 175s in the rear, while the i3S steps that up to 175s up front and 195s in the back. The following year, the i3 gained a 42 kilowatt-hour battery pack capable of 153 miles of EPA-rated range. The i3 carried on through the 2021 model year before being retired to make way for BMW's longer range and physically larger offerings like the i4 and iX. The i3 never reached the mainstream appeal of other EV hatchbacks like the Chevy Bolt, but it developed a niche following of people who really appreciated its engineering, personality, and quirkiness. But because of its unconventional nature and relatively high original price, depreciation hit the BMW i3 particularly hard. You can now buy one for the price of a professionally installed above-ground pool. In this particular i3, $8,000. Yes, 8,000. It's a 2014 i3 with 46,000 miles on the odometer and pretty much every option you could ask for. In my opinion, the i3 is the craziest sub $10,000 car you can possibly find. At the tail end of this design, we get a hatchback. Open it up, and you get 15.1 cubic feet of cargo volume, which is honestly not bad for a vehicle of this caliber. Up front, the BMW i3 gets a 2 cubic foot front trunk, resulting in a total cargo volume of 17.1 cubic feet. That's really interesting because the new BMW i5 sedan gets 17.3 cubic feet of total cargo volume, and that's a mid-size sedan. Not bad for the little i3. When you want to get inside the i3, we have a fun process. So first off, you open up the front door like so. By the way, these are frameless windows, which I really like. And then the back door, there's a small handle in here. You pull that, and now you have access to the second row. And getting in is relatively easy. So I'll just sit, and boom, I'm inside the i3. When you get into the back seats of the i3, there's a lot of stuff that stands out, but my favorite thing about the i3's interior is that 25% of everything in here is made out of recycled materials. This goes down to the seats, so this fabric material that you're sitting on is actually made out of recycled plastic water bottles. And a lot of the components that are not made out of recycled materials were sustainably sourced. For instance, these leather inserts on the seats were tanned using olive leaves. Now, this is similar to what Porsche does with its Olea Club leather interior. Leather is typically tanned using chemicals like chromium sulfate, and this results in a lot of waste water. But when you use olive leaves like this, it is more time intensive, it is more costly, but it is a lot more sustainable. The next thing is all these trim pieces we see up here and down low are made out of Kenaf fibers. Kenaf is a plant that is in the hibiscus genus, and it grows very quickly, therefore it can be replaced pretty quickly, and it looks a lot better than having plastic in the door panel. When this car came out, BMW said in its press release that 95% of this entire car could be recyclable at the end of these vehicles' service lives. Will that actually happen? I don't know. But what I do know is that there are 4 different types of interiors you can get in the i3. The first is the base interior, and that is called Deco World. The next one is called Mega World, which is a little step up. It has some lighter materials on the interior and just looks a little more open and airy. The third one, which is my favorite, is the Giga World interior. We have these cool contrasting colors on the seats, and we also get the nice eucalyptus wood dashboard. Finally, there is the Terra World interior, which in my experience is the hardest to find on the used market, and that one has very premium looking brown leather. So if you want something that looks the most upscale, I'd recommend trying to find one with the Terra World interior. In terms of the actual back seats of the i3, they're relatively spacious, all things considered. We don't get a center armrest or anything like that. We do, however, get 2 cup holders located down here, and the floor area is pretty much flat. There are armrests in the doors, and we have perhaps the smallest rear seat back pockets. Wow, this lighting looks like a hostage video, but up front, it is very nice up here. We get heated seats as standard, and this overall interior is very ergonomically laid out. I really like the placement of everything in this cabin, including the drive selector. So you simply put your foot on the brake, press the start stop button, and you got that right here. This interior comes with 2 cup holders. We have a 12-volt power outlet, a regular USB-A port, and a center console. This particular i3 has the technology package, so we get this larger screen in the center. If you don't have the technology package, you get a smaller screen with these really large plastic bezels. They don't look too great. So if you want the more modern look in the cabin, you gotta find one with the tech package. A couple features that I really recommend are the Harman Kardon sound system, and I think this HK sound system is very good, especially in the i3's small cabin, and the split sunroof. So some i3s will have a split sunroof, and it's basically one glass panel, but there's a little divider in the middle, and it looks kind of cool. It's like each person gets their own sunroof. The early years of the i3 don't come with a backup camera as standard, so if you want a backup camera, you gotta find one with the parking assistant package. Regardless of the packages, I really like it up here in the i3. This car is from 2014, yet it still feels and looks very modern. And now it's time to talk about the i3's software. Now, one thing I just noticed is that the headlights are LED, but the high beams are halogen. I don't like that. Anyways, when you get to the car, we have our menu. And by the way, to use this, we have the iDrive infotainment mouse thing here, which we use to control the screen. So we can scroll through some of the options. You have our Bluetooth, you got the radio, obviously you get Sirius XM as well, and you also have navigation. Once again, on these old i3s, you don't get CarPlay or anything like that. Now, if we want to enter an address, it actually works pretty well. We just click there, and then we can type in what city or where we want to go to. So what's cool is if you look at this little mouse, you can actually write in letters. So say we want to go to, oh, I don't know, Irvine. We can write I-R-V-I. There we go. And then Irvine pops up to the right. And then we click on Irvine. And now we get our route down to Irvine. It tells us that our electric range is insufficient, as we would imagine, and then we can search for charging stations. The unfortunate thing about the i3, well, A, you probably don't want to do a road trip in these cars anyways, because most of these non-range extender 2014s are looking at about 60-ish usable miles of range. But this doesn't auto add in the charging stops, and it doesn't tell you like what time you're going to pull in, what your state of charge is going to be. Definitely not as advanced as a lot of the newer BMWs in terms of their iDrive 8 EV route planner. Nevertheless, you can add in your charging stops manually. And as you notice on the screen, there's a little ring that says comfort, and that actually is your range map. So that's how far we can go around San Francisco on our current state of charge. Other features here include the vehicle info. So here we can see a lot of stuff pertaining to the energy flow of the vehicle. So we can see energy coming in or out. This is more relatable if you have the range extender model. So then you could see a little diagram of when the range extender is turned on. And then we can also see our estimated range and our potential since we have climate control turned on. Moving over, we have our gauge cluster located right here. Here we can see our estimated range, what mode we are in, what our current trip mileage is, and then our efficiency off to the left, 4.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which is really good. And as you can see, that 29 miles looks pretty low. So now we will transition into talking about range and charging with the i3. And now, range. When this i3 was new, it had a 22 kilowatt hour battery pack, though only 18.8 of those kilowatt hours were usable. 12 years later, this i3 has about 25% degradation. So we are sitting at 75% state of health, and that correlates to around 14.1 kilowatt hours remaining. Therefore, if we go off of the EPA estimate, our range should be around 60 miles. The good news is this car can charge really quickly. So on an AC charger, this vehicle can accept 7.4 kilowatts, and that means you can go from 0 to full in about 3 hours. The other thing is that the i3 can charge at a DC fast charger. Now, this particular 2014 i3 has the DC charging package, as we can see right there, but not every 2014 i3 is DC charging capable. Those cars will literally just have an AC charging port, but thankfully for the 2015 model year, BMW standardized the DC port. Finally, if you want an i3 but prefer some more range, then I'd recommend getting a newer one. The 2017 model year gets a 33 kilowatt hour battery pack. I believe around 28 to 29 of those kilowatt hours are usable. And then for the 2019 model year, the i3 gets a total battery capacity of 42.2 kilowatt hours, delivering an EPA range of 153 miles. That was probably a lot of information. Now let's clear our minds by getting this thing out on the road. There goes a Fiat 500e. I bet that driver doesn't know that we are way cooler than them. All right, pulling out and accelerating. Yeah, this car's pretty quick. It's definitely not crazy exciting compared to a lot of the modern EVs today. In fact, when I drove an i3 for the first time, I think this was like back in 2020, I was amazed with how quick it was. And this was a range extender I drove too. So this one was even slower than the non-range extender one I'm in right now. There's another BMW i3 just drove by. I just waved to her. She didn't wave back. It's a little sad that the i3 community might be dying. Anyways, as I'm driving down the road, I don't even know what I was talking about last, but handling, because this is something you might be curious about. The handling's pretty good in the BMW i3. The steering is very responsive, and yeah, it holds the road pretty well. Obviously, we are really limited by the tires that this car has. We're running on 155s up front, 175s on the back. And yeah, that's not really conducive to amazing handling, but I think the car does fine. It's definitely chuckable. It's a little cheeky around corners. Oh yes, before I got distracted, I was talking about the acceleration. So acceleration in here is fine. It's 170 horsepower. The car weighs around 2,635, I believe, pounds. And it's good. I think we're really limited by the tires, just like the handling, in terms of like off the line acceleration when you're at zero, just because you will burn through tires in this car and you have to limit the traction to some extent. But now if we are just cruising down the road, like right now we're at 40 miles per hour, and if I floor it, yeah, it's a good amount of torque. It's definitely fine. It's enough to be playful, but it doesn't go too crazy. It's not like the i4 M50 or anything like that. But this car does 0 to 60 in around 7 seconds, which is pretty good for a car of its size. The one thing when driving this vehicle you just can't stop thinking about is just the weird proportion. So first off, the dashboard goes back really far, and you can probably notice that by the camera angle that you will see me at, because you can see like the entire steering wheel and almost the tip of my gauge cluster. But you have a pretty wide viewing angle in this car. The windows are very big, and I think overall the visibility in this car is truly incredible. So one aspect that I really need to give BMW credit for all the way back in late 2013 when this car hit the market is just how well the one pedal driving system in this car works. So first off, it's tuned very well. So when you let off the accelerator, you get nice regen, slows you down, and then it brings you to a complete stop so smoothly. There's no lurchiness, no jerks, nothing. It's just like buttery smooth. You come down to a complete stop. That is beautiful. What's also beautiful is that there is no creep mode in this car. So many of these early EVs, and even EVs today, namely Volkswagen, Porsche, Toyota, Subaru, lots of brands, give their cars creep mode. And there's no reason for an EV to have creep mode besides making it feel like a gas car. And who wants to drive a vehicle that feels like a gas car? Because they generally suck compared to EVs. So you're driving a vehicle that creeps forward, which is dumb. And then some of these cars don't even have a way to turn it off. But in the BMW i3 that came out a long time ago, has no creep mode at all, which is perfectly fine by me. And this car defaults to one pedal driving because there's no other option. You have to drive this car in one pedal driving, which I think is the correct way to drive an electric car. And the reason I say that is when you decelerate in an EV, most of the time you're using regen up until a certain point, and then the friction brakes kick in. But why not modulate all of the potential of the electric motor with just one pedal? That makes a lot of sense. Why blend in regen into the brake pedal? Because then it can feel clunky, because then you will be regenning to a certain point and then using the friction brakes, and then it can just feel really awkward when you slow down. And you feel this in a lot of EVs on the road that have a blended brake pedal. And in my opinion, it's dumb. Just have one pedal driving, you let off the accelerator, it slows down. And the BMW i3 does that, and it feels perfectly fine. It's not that hard to get used to. People need to stop freaking out. I don't know. This is just kind of a rant, but what I am saying is BMW got this right in late 2013 when other automakers today don't even know what they're doing. So this car is just so ahead of its time. It's crazy. Now, next up is highway driving. And as you can see from this car, it's a smaller vehicle, narrow tires, high roof line. There is some more wind noise in here. It does fine at highway speeds. It still feels stable and comfortable when you're driving at 70 miles per hour, but the car doesn't like to be driven at 70 miles per hour just because the drag coefficient is not amazing in here compared to some like really low swung EVs on the market, Lucid Air, Tesla Model 3. So it does kind of eat up some more range. And you know, when you're looking at like 60-ish miles on a full charge on an older one like this, you're probably going to get around, I don't know, like 50-ish at highway speeds. Not amazing, but for me, my commute's about 50 miles round trip, and it would be fine driving at highway speeds. I'll basically just drive to work, drive home, and then plug in like I normally would. So it just depends on your driving styles. But obviously, if you are going on a road trip or something, you probably don't want to be taking a car like the i3. Still, when you're cruising down the highway, you do have a decent amount of safety features if you have the driver assistance package. So as standard, you don't really get anything at all in terms of safety, but if you do get the driver assistance pack, then you get adaptive cruise control. So it works fine. Obviously, this is an older vehicle. You wouldn't expect the adaptive cruise control to be perfect, and it's not for sure. There's even some forums where people say that in direct sunlight, like when the sun's setting and shining directly at the car, the adaptive cruise control can get a little wonky, but in the vast majority of circumstances, I think this adaptive cruise control system works perfectly fine. The original i3 does not have lane centering, but it does have lane departure warning. So if you go out of the lane, it will just give you a little tug on the steering wheel to let you know to get back in the center. From the accelerator pedal feel to the overall driving experience to the safety features, on the road, the BMW i3 still feels very far ahead of its time. As you can probably tell, I really like the i3. It represents an era in automotive history when manufacturers could experiment. They could try different things. Some went for large batteries and crossover form factors to attract people into EVs, and others tried to squeeze every ounce of efficiency out of their products. Ultimately, the i3 just seemed to be ahead of its time and too individualistic for the masses to enjoy. The i3 may not have had the same cultural impact as the Tesla Model 3 or Model S, but to me, it marks a moment when automakers were brave enough to build something truly different. The i3 wasn't just a car with a unique design. It had a unique design, a unique platform, a unique powertrain, and a completely unique driving experience. It went all in on avant-garde engineering and will probably never see a car quite like it ever again. And with that, thank you, BMW. Thank you for building a truly one-of-a-kind product. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the subscribe button. Alternatively, you can name your second-born child Evercar's Official.